Imagine this. You're in a small town in Uganda, Nabumali. There's a tribal leader there, a man named Moses Kotoy, and he's standing next to his son. And the first thing you'd notice is just the visual contrast. It's almost distracting. The son's much taller, towers over him, and his skin tone is noticeably lighter. Now, anywhere else, there would be whispers. But Moses, he just kind of shrugs it off. He makes a joke about how he didn't look much like his own father, and he still ended up becoming the clan chief. For him, the biology is just, well, it's irrelevant. His whole philosophy is, if a child is born in your home, it's your child. Simple as that. But the thing is, outside of his small community, that attitude has completely vanished. The entire country is caught up in this frantic, almost chaotic obsession with paternity testing. And the results that are coming out, they are just jaw-dropping. The Ministry of Internal Affairs spokesperson came out and said that in a recent sample of tests, nearly 98% confirmed the men's worst fears.
98%.
That they were not the biological fathers. It's gotten so extreme that the government issued an official warning. And they didn't say, get a lawyer or seek counseling. They just told men to stop taking the tests. The official advice was, unless your heart is hard enough to handle it, just don't ask the question. 98%. I mean, it's an almost unimaginable number.
It is.
And it shows this collision, right? Modern science crashing head-on into these really deeply rooted social structures, and it's forcing this massive crisis of identity.
And that official advice to basically choose ignorance over truth, that tells you everything you need to know about how big a threat this has become.
So that's our mission for this deep dive. We want to explore how this scientific fact is shaking Ugandan society to its core. And, more importantly, look at the three big ways institutions are trying to manage the fallout. You have the government, the church, and the traditional leaders all stepping in.
And what's so fascinating is that it's not just a high statistic. It's proof of a complete social breakdown of trust. We're seeing, widespread discontent, marriages breaking down on a mass scale, and even, unfortunately, documented violence the moment these results are handed over.
So the government's plea to just look away, it shows how bad the consequences are when data contradicts a man's entire identity.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get right into the official data, because the numbers are really key here. The spokesperson for the Ministry of Internal Affairs, Simon Peter Mundai, he confirmed all this.
He did.
Can you walk us through who is even seeking these tests, and what's the real context behind that staggering 98% figure?
Right, and we have to clarify something really important here. This data is the measure of a crisis.
It's not a random sample of the population.
Exactly, not at all. When you look at who is applying for these DNA tests, something like 95% of them are men. And these are men who are driven by a deep pre-existing suspicion that's just been amplified by this whole national conversation.
So they're already pretty sure of the answer before they even walk in.
They are. I mean, think about it. Globally, if you take a truly random sample, non-paternity rates are usually in the low single digits, maybe 1% to 4%. So when the Ugandan centers are confirming non-paternity in over 98% of their tests for this sample,
it tells you that the people walking in the door already know. The test isn't creating suspicion.
It's just confirming an epidemic of social distrust that's already there.
That really is the distinction, isn't it? This isn't biology gone wrong. It's social trust that has been completely shattered.
Precisely. And because the results are almost all exclusionary, they confirm the man's absolute worst fears. So the advice from the ministry had to be just as dramatic. Mundai is essentially giving a psychological warning before a scientific one.
Be prepared with a hard enough heart.
A hard enough heart. It's a literal warning that the truth might completely destroy your life.
And this is where it gets really human. Because the stats, they set the stage, but the anecdotes show the cost. We have the story of a man named David, a successful merchant in Kampala. And he wasn't acting on some concrete evidence, some proof of his wife's infidelity.
No.
His doubt was being fueled by the whole atmosphere, the statistics, the gossip, the headlines.
David's story is just heartbreaking because it shows how this general paranoia becomes a very personal devastation. He had 3 sons. He was proud of them, paying for good schools, talking about their futures. But he was just driven by that nagging curiosity, the what if, and he went ahead with the tests, ignoring all the public warnings.
And what did the envelope say?
The results confirmed exclusion for 2 of his 3 boys.
Wow, 2 of the 3.
Imagine that moment, just decades of being a father, all that investment, all that love, just erased by a single piece of paper.
And that's exactly why the government is saying, just stop asking the question. Because it's not just a personal tragedy.
It's a social contagion, absolutely. The report said he just sat in his car for hours, completely hollowed out, grappling with this cold, objective fact that had just invalidated his entire history, his identity.
His whole life as a father.
Exactly. And this is what leads to the immediate eviction of the wife, the abandonment of the children. So the government is trying to impose ignorance.
Because the alternative is just total social fracture. Okay,
Yep.
So the state tells people to shut down the truth to keep the peace. But that creates a vacuum, right? A moral vacuum.
Right.
So where did the religious leaders step in? What was their solution?
Well, the religious leaders saw that the government can issue warnings, but the church has to deal with the moral and, frankly, the humanitarian fallout. Specifically, Archbishop Stephen Kazimba. He stepped in to address the crisis by prioritizing the family unit over the biological facts.
So they weren't focused on the man's scientific justice.
No, not at all. They saw the sheer number of children being abandoned, sometimes overnight, and realized they had to intervene for the innocent parties here.
They were demanding mercy, even if it was painful, over cold, hard justice. What was the core of that argument?
His counsel is really this plea for compassion in the face of scientific objectivity. He had a quote that's become central to this whole debate. He said, "You did the DNA test, and it turns out only 2 out of 4 children are yours. Take care of them as they are now."
Just take care of them.
It's that direct. Accept the family as it exists right now, regardless of what the test says.
But that sounds noble. But you think about a man, like this other case, Samuel, he finds out only 2 of his 4 kids are biologically his. He's filled with humiliation, with rage, and the bishop is asking him to just set all of that aside for the sake of the children.
And that is the absolute heart of the moral complexity. The church knows what a huge sacrifice they're asking for. They're essentially posing the question, are you going to choose the cold justice of biology or the painful mercy that's required for your community to survive?
And their reasoning is just pragmatic.
It's pragmatic and it's humanitarian. In many of these cultures, parenthood isn't just about biology. It's a practice. It's about love, history, social investment. The kids already call you daddy. The church is just trying to prevent a massive crisis of abandoned and traumatized children.
So their message is that the history of love should outweigh the genetics.
Even if it feels deeply, deeply unjust to the man, it's a move to hold the community together.
It's a massive societal compromise. So we have the government asking for silence to keep the peace. We have the church pleading for mercy to keep families stable. Now let's go to that third perspective, maybe the most fascinating one, which is the traditional wisdom from figures like Moses Kutoy, the chief we started with.
Chief Kutoy, yeah, he offers this profoundly stabilizing view because his philosophy, it just predates all of this. It's based on centuries of communal survival. He doesn't have to choose between justice and mercy because he just declares the scientific test irrelevant.
He doesn't even enter the debate.
He doesn't. He deals with all the gossip head on by using his own family, his son, who looks so different from him, to just neutralize the whole conversation. In a world obsessed with DNA, he's proactively using visible biological difference to prove that biology isn't the final authority.
And the humor he uses, that self-deprecating humor, it just strips the gossip of all its power.
Absolutely. He jokes about not looking like his own father, who is also the chief. And that simple move, it reframes the whole definition of what a father is. In many of these societies, fatherhood is a social contract. It's defined by paying the bride price, accepting the child into the clan. The genetics are secondary.
So his philosophy, a child born in your home is your child. It's the ultimate answer to this modern panic. For him, fatherhood is about raising, mentoring, providing. It's not a lab report.
That is the core difference. The test of paternity isn't a cheek swab. It's the act of being present, of honoring the marriage. He just declared the boy was his son because he chose him, he accepted him. And by doing that, he basically revokes the authority of science in his community.
That view is a stabilizing force. The patriarch's duty just overrides the truth.
It does, and it requires this incredible personal security and maturity to uphold that, especially with all this panic going on.
It suggests that if a man defines his identity through his duty, not his genes, then this whole DNA crisis,
Yeah.
it can't even touch him.
And that's the critical insight. It's the community saying we have our own wisdom that has kept us going for centuries, and that wisdom has to take precedence over these new, cold, hard facts. Because the goal is cohesion. The goal is survival. It may not be scientifically correct, but it's socially humane.
So when we put it all together, you see 3 really distinct responses to the exact same scientific fact. The government is just overwhelmed, and it's calling for caution, almost for willful ignorance, just to keep the system from collapsing.
Right. Then you have the church, driven by this humanitarian urgency, pleading for a very painful kind of mercy to protect the children.
And then finally, the traditional structures, just choosing the social cohesion and the social contract over any kind of biological purity.
And that synthesis, it just highlights the immense pressure point here. Modern technology gives us these definitive, objective biological facts. But this crisis shows that societies and individuals, they ultimately have to choose which facts they allow to define them and which facts they allow to destroy them.
The choice between cold scientific justice and painful warm mercy.
That choice defines this entire moment in Uganda. It's a philosophical test, really, when scientific truth itself becomes a threat to the system.
The whole situation in Uganda, this DNA storm, it reveals something fundamental. The true power of a scientific fact isn't just in its accuracy. It's in the cultural and societal power that we all collectively decide to give it. The government and the church, through these really dramatic, desperate interventions, they're essentially trying to revoke that power. They're trying to take it back from scientific truth to prevent a total systemic collapse. They're arguing that sometimes, for the well-being of a society, you have to ignore the definitive data. And that reveals just how fragile our modern ideas of family and identity really are when they're confronted by an irrefutable truth.